Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Privilege and an honor to be here. The easiest job, of course, because as moderator, all you do is pose the questions. Not unusual for the HR profession, for the rest of us, but fortunately, we have 250 years of collective experience on the dais. So hopefully, we will be able to address several things that kind of come up from this conversation. Now, as we've kind of called this out, there are three key words that are there in this conversation, right? There is culture, wellness, and inclusivity. And if you look at the combination of the words, I was reminded of a movie called Golmaal, and I'm talking of the old Golmaal that released in 1979. Quick show of hands, how many of us have seen that movie? Wow, so we've clearly got a much older audience. Because most others have only seen the car crashing version of Rohit Shetty. But yeah. So if you've seen the movie, there is one situation wherein the protagonist is trying to teach, the actress, on Kabir ke Dohe. And that's where, she keeps looking at the watch, like I am now. It says 58 minutes and 12 seconds. So he says, and I quote in Hindi, "Aap ghadi kyun dekhti hai?" So she says, 6:30 baj gaye. He says, "वो तो रोज बजते हैं." So then she says, "मैं थक जाती हूँ. थोड़े टाइम के बाद मतलब खत्म कीजिए इसको." And then he says, "वैसे पूरी जिंदगी कबीर का अध्याय पढ़ने के लिए कम है, परंतु मैं 40 मिनट में समाप्त करने की कोशिश करूँगा." It's the same with culture, inclusivity, and wellness, right? We could discuss it for a lifetime, but we will try and finish it in the next 57 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah? So thank you for your time. From the point of view of culture, right? See, culture is like water in an aquarium, right? You can't see it, but it's so critical for the life forms that are surviving inside it. So what we all agreed was that we will not talk so much about culture, but we will focus a little bit more on wellness and inclusivity. So therefore, as you can see, we had a little bit of an agriculture. Right? We all agreed. So it's agriculture for us. Yeah? So let's focus on two things, wellness and inclusivity. Now, wellness effectively is the new buzzword. It's equivalent of strategy, right? It's most used. People have their own interpretation. We still don't know what it means. The previous session, I missed one aspect of wellness that I missed the most. I missed one that I love the most, which is called financial wellness, right? Because you have financial wellness, sometimes the other wellnesses take care of themselves. But having said that, right, let's talk a little bit, and we've got such a privileged panel that we'll talk about here today. So let's, okay, maybe I'll take the chance and sit on the chair now, right? So let's talk a little bit about starting with wellness. And let me start with Anuja. Why don't you talk to me, Anuja, about, since we've said wellness is the new strategy, why don't you talk us through what is your definition of wellness in the company that you work at? And, it's an outstanding organization that generates tons and tons of revenue with just 75 people. So it's, obviously, SBI cap, investment banking, private equity, outstanding place to be in. So why don't you walk us through what's your definition of wellness at your company, and how is it that you've seen it impact culture, etc., positively?
Thanks, Amit. Good evening, everyone. Of course, culture is very close to my heart, and like you said, I can talk forever, but we'll have to keep it limited. Every organization obviously has its own culture. At SBI Cap Ventures, I'll talk a little bit about my organization, current organization. We are trying to achieve something which is not just culture, but the desired culture. And how do we move towards achieving a desired culture? Does wellness and inclusion form part of it or help us achieve it? I would say definitely for us. I would focus a bit on the wellness part of the topic. We have a lot of esteemed speakers who will also talk about both these topics. Now, deep diving a bit on the wellness part, for SVL, wellness typically is a very holistic approach. We try and cover various parts of wellness, and to To mention some are the physical fitness or the physical health part of wellness, the mental health, then we have emotional well-being and social well-being. Now, I would actually keep it a little simple when it comes to the first two parts, because this is something I felt is much easier to implement. We have a program called 360, Wellness 360, and in that we actually, it's a very inclusive program. People across the organization, across location, get through the organization sponsored facilities, they get access to a host of fitness facilities such as gym, Zumba, I mean, you name it, and all the modern facilities are there. So it's much easier. You try to create awareness, you communicate, you nudge people to go and utilize these facilities. It's still there. We see a lot of engagement around that. When it comes to mental wellness, we have an employee assistance program, entirely confidential. People believe that they can use this without organization tracking or monitoring any of this data. So there's a lot of trust in that program, and I mean, I especially don't know. I mean, none of us, we know who actually uses it, but I'm sure that it will be useful to people. So, these two parts is actually for us much easier to implement. It's there, it is for people to take care of themselves. We keep on, doing awareness sessions, and that's about it. But when it comes to the emotional and social bit of wellness, that becomes the tricky topic, because that's when it taps into the DNA of the organization. That's when the entire stakeholders needs to come together and believe in transforming the culture of the organization to ensure that there is emotional and we are taking care of the emotional and social well-being of people. So I'll deep dive a bit on these two topics. When it comes to emotional well-being, what do we really understand by that? Emotional well-being is, how do I feel at work? Every day when I'm going to work, how do I feel about, at the workplace? What's the level of stress, and how do I cope up with this stress? So at our level, at the organization level, we have tried to implement certain initiatives or strategies, people strategies, which help reduce this stress that we talk about at workplace. One of it is that, it works for organizations, like we all believe that, it's not one fit for all. So in our organization, we have a very flat organization. So it's non-hierarchical. So what we try to focus on this is, through this is that employees across the board should get opportunity, equal opportunity. Even the youngest member in the team get an opportunity to be part of the decision-making discussions. And what it leads to is that you focus on mutual respect, and which comes through what you bring to the table rather than through designations. So it kind of, it leads to, we've actually received feedback that people really love this sort of, involvement and delegation. And the other way we try to achieve this is through something we call, in our framework, is through performance, team performance versus individual performance. So we have a very, I would say, a little complicated framework, but here the focus is on team performance rather than individual performance. So as a team, if you do not succeed, then having a star in the team will really not help. So you rather have a rock star team than have a individual star in the team. How does that help in reducing or creating a more cohesive, collaborative workplace is, in a nutshell, it actually reduces a lot of politics, a lot of counterproductive stress and competition, and it also reduces job insecurities. And I can, again, there's a lot to say about it, but in the interest of time, I would leave it to that. Secondly, we also have a lot of policies around flexibility. Because today, one of the main reasons for stress is when you're trying to balance your work as well as devoting time to your professional and personal life. Now, how do you balance this? It can happen only when the organization is supportive towards it. So we have a hybrid workplace, we have extended work from home, flexi hours, people can go on extended maternity leave. Primary caregivers are given extended work from home and leaves. Similarly for special medical cases. And most importantly, the managers are trained or counseled to support the team using these policies. So some of these elements actually help reduce the stress at work and helps have a team effort, a cohesive team around it. And finally, on the social bit, very quickly, what we have been focusing is on a lot of team bonding. So through our offsites, and these are just not offsites where we are doing team building per se, but we run few sessions, workshops back to back, and we reinforce these workshops year on year, and that is on growth mindset. Now, the concept of growth mindset in that kind of a setup talks about a culture where we want a lot of innovation, continuous learning, and psychological safety. And this we actually impart, and what this means for every individual, that is kind of run through various sessions, through various activities. And because social wellness, like emotional is about how I cope up with stress, social is how my interpersonal relationships are working within the organization. Sure. Do I have friends at work? So how do we do that? So through these sessions, and then kind of reinforcing the organization's purpose and aligning individual purpose to the organization's purpose, and through a growth mindset framework, we try to build those interpersonal skills. So, I mean, this is very in a nutshell. I just kind of thought it might be useful, take through a few initiatives that as an organization we are running, and the impact, which is the last part of your question, Amit. The impact comes from, I can in a nutshell say, through 3 Ps of our culture, which is positivity, productivity, and people orientation. That is our core focus from a culture perspective. And with that, over to you, Amit. I've taken a lot of time, so I'll keep quiet for the rest of the session.
No, great. So maybe it's just the effect of the outstanding lunch that was served, but I was imagining this as a multi-cuisine restaurant, right? Which is, there is something for everybody. So you've got all kinds of cuisines and you can choose, right? There's so much on offer. So very often, I think the key takeaway for me is, it's about offering people a choice, right? So they are allowing, rather than deciding what's good for them, you're saying, hey, there are lots of things that I can offer you, think of what's good for you. So let's go now from a a relatively, small, clearly close bonded company to, one that's existed for maybe over 100 years. So Mohit, do you want to talk about stuff that happens at Hindalco around the concept of wellness, and what does that mean?
Oh, sure. So first of all, it was very exhaustive, Anuja. So in terms of what wellness is and the range of it, so I'll not go into defining it. I'll say that how it plays out in our context. So we are spread over around some 25 locations, very exotic locations, remote areas of India's in Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh. We manufacture copper and aluminum, and byproducts are gold and silver. We are the biggest producers. So we are the biggest producers of gold, right? And we have mines in very exotic locations. And when I say exotic, they are actually exotic. So, and number of manpower that we are dealing with in Hindalco is around 55,000 people actually, that walk in and walk out of the Hindalco facilities every day. So that's very, very important. It's part of our overall HR strategy. When we are working on our strategy 3 years back, this is the pillar in our strategy. And in that pillar, the bricks are what Anuja explained, that is physical. Obviously, in our context, it will mean different things. Physical, mental, emotional, social, financial, and of course, spiritual well-being. So when we are talking about the physical part of it, we are into very remote areas. So once you have things like COVID and all, we need to have the equipped medical facilities, right? So that is our first priorities over there. And not only our employees benefit from that, but also the adjoining community that also benefits from that. We need to have a wonderful township. So we get the best of the talent from across the country and across the world also. So if they need to experience Kamala Mills over there, can they experience over there? Yeah? So we try to create it over there with respect to the lawn tennis, swimming pool, and all the facilities which are possible to create over there. So that's on the health part of it, which is the medical facilities and also the health checkups and the doctors, Western class doctors over there. So that is what we try to create, where it is that employees are the best judge for that, and they rate us reasonably well on that piece. Mental and emotional wellness, Anuja covered in great detail. where it's all about experiences, right? So how do you create experiences? The experiences get created between the manager and the employee. The manager is the window for the organization intent to be delivered. So we equip managers in having right conversations, right? And that's part of a culture journey to de-emphasize hierarchy and equip our managers to have the enabling, empowering focus, and conversations are the a great tool towards that. We call it My People Are. My People Are is about knowing the people better, what is that they're doing, what more they can do, what is their career ambition, what is their learning ambition. All that leads to what is the personal purpose, what is the, how it is aligned to the organization purpose, what resources they can take, who they can take help from, what they need to build on. So all that is skill, which is nothing but coaching conversations. So we are great believer in terms of the coaching culture, and that is where the experience gets created. Apart from, we also have a pool of first aiders, emotional first aiders across our plants who are trained to give the first aid, emotional first aid. Not that they get into the counseling part of it, but then they're able to notice if something is going amiss, and they're able to alert the specialist in the system or outside the system. We do have that help desk, and we do have outsourced facilities where people can go and take the counseling support. With respect to one other piece, the financial wellness is part of Atul, my friend, is there from IIT Birla Capital. Yeah, Anupa is there, right? So they'll talk more about that. And financial wellness is part of, we get support from our sister organizations. Yeah. So coming over to the spiritual part of it, yeah, the organization purpose is to enrich lives by building dynamic institutions that inspire trust. So there is no need for our employees to do any moonlighting, right? So what we do is to align their moon with the organization moon, actually. Yeah. So yeah, and we do workshops on that find your own ikigai, right? So it's a broad enough purpose that is inspiring trust to enrich lives, and somewhere in this will be your ikigai, your purpose, right? So how do you figure out, first of all, are you in touch with your own purpose? Most of us are not, right? We don't have that appointment with ourselves. That is, what is that I want in life, right? It is that somebody else wanted, and we keep going with that. So in those workshops, we help them in finding their own purpose and how does it align to that. And we are willing to customize the roles as per the moon that they have in their mind, actually, right? So are we there? Maybe not. Are we in that direction? Definitely yes. Yeah. So that is the spiritual part of it, and we are a great motor of mindfulness in our organization. The impact of it. The impact of it is in practicing of the right behaviors in the organization. We call them alert behaviors, that is accountability and ownership, learning fast, failing fast, empowering, responsiveness, and winning with teams, which leads to organization outcomes like customer centricity. We call that CREST, return on capital, environment and sustainability, given that we consume a lot of power. So how do we become carbon neutral? So that is where we are moving. The sustainability part of it, and also home to exceptional talent. So how do we attract the best-in-class talent in the locations that we have? And we are able to do that. Share price normally keeps going up, and our variable pays are also pretty encouraging. So, so that's the impact on the business, and culturally, it's a much happier place. We are a great place to work. With the scores keep going up, and that's an encouraging thumbs up to the entire team, which includes those 55,000 people who are either designing or practicing or implementing. So that's the impact of it, actually.
Wow, superb. Yeah. Lovely story from Hindalco. And
thank you.
You know, very often they say that places like that, are not places you can find on a map, right? So, you would have heard of London, you would have heard of Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, but you would never have heard of Rehala, Behala, Shambhupura.
Lapanga.
Yeah, Darbhanga. There you go.
Rehala, yeah.
So, being able to create that in an environment like that, and clearly based on the references that you keep making to the celestial body, I think love you to the moon and back in Hindalco clearly means something different than what we've learned so far. So thank you. That was a great insight on wellness. Let's move to the other piece, right, which is inclusivity. Now, some of the challenges that we face on inclusivity is, inclusivity by definition is about keeping everyone together, right? Having everyone, in the same library, if not on the same page while reading the same book. Now, the challenge is we live in a time where performance differentiation seems to be the most important thing, right? It's almost like the survival of the fittest, performance differentiation. A lot of that seems to be the norm. So let me start with you, Rajni. What is it that has been your experience around, differentiation versus inclusivity, and can the two coexist based on what you've seen?
Sure. Just check. Am I audible? So actually, Amit, it's a wonderful question and the one that we deal with as HR every day. But I would say the phenomena that's widely spoken as differentiation versus inclusivity needs to be differentiation and inclusivity. So we need to replace versus with and. Particularly because both the pieces are so integral to building a culture which can be meritocratic, performance-oriented, and that's the purpose of differentiation, which is valuing different skills, individuals, niche, domain that they bring on board, the differential performance that they bring on board. So differentiation is critical because, you need to role model certain behaviors in the organization. Inclusivity is equally important because it creates a platform where you provide equal opportunity, irrespective of your background, which is race, ethnicity, caste, creed, religion, geography. So both go hand in hand. So can they coexist? Indeed, they can. The dilemma arises from the fact that today in organizations, there's enough and more that we do around differentiation. So our annual performance management is based on differentiation. The on-the-go rewards and recognition also recognize top of the talent. So yes, there's differentiation. So we keep seeing it on the wall, in the matrices, in the reports on day-to-day basis. So much doesn't get spoken about or is on the wall around inclusivity. So I think the challenge is, can we bring them to the fore with equal importance? Can they coexist? Let me share with some examples. I go back to 2013. And I was carrying my second child, 8 months of pregnancy. It was the time when promotions are announced and annual performance appraisal is out. Of course, diversity has been now a topic, so awareness is catching up, best practices are catching up. But around that time, when I was promoted in 8 months of pregnancy, it was how you could really carry along meritocracy as well as inclusivity. So it was not based on merit, and it was not being excluded, is what inclusivity is. So it was a bold statement. There were some murmurs, but yeah, at best people asked, oh great, double joy. And I said, yeah, double joy. So that's how we did it. The second piece that we did in the consequent year when I was chairing the diversity agenda at CRISIL was, we decided that all the women who come back from maternity leave will have the same rating or more as the previous year. So yeah, you're away for 3-4 months, but does that really discount your potential? The answer is no. You want to create a differentiation on performance, the bonus, the reward, maybe sure. But then can you be in the run-up scheme to the succession, ESOP holding, or the greater plans that the organization has? The answer is the potential doesn't go up or down in a period of 3 to 4 months when a woman is away. So again, I think these two examples really stood out when I was trying to think yesterday where I've really seen this come to play. And these two really tell me that meritocracy and inclusivity can be the game rather than differentiation versus inclusivity, is what I would say.
Wow, fantastic examples. Thank you. That was really, that really kind of resonates, right? And it's great that you remember what happened 10 or 11 years ago. And at that time, I'm sure it was double joy. Obviously now it means that your kid is 11 years old, so hopefully you still have some hopes from them. It's not like they're getting, at a stage where there are 20-somethings wherein you've kind of given up. So great, lovely to hear that. Sudhir, let's turn to you. Of course, what we heard was a very interesting perspective that came primarily from, how shall I say, an organization point of view that was, representing and putting forward gender diversity. From the point of view, and said that that's what inclusivity meant to them. What's been your experience around how can these coexist? What are the dilemmas? What are some of the practical issues?
Thank you, Amit, and that was a wonderful opening, though. And the discussion is so far very, very engaging and enriching. And thank you to all of you for staying with us so far, physically, and I am hoping mentally as well.
That's very inclusive.
Yeah. And Setmax is still there, so I'm not sure if they have seen Golmaal on Setmax or they are actually that old. So I'm assuming a lot of them are quite young. And so let's look at, how culture has evolved, throughout the day we've been discussing. So let me take a little bit of detour and then come back to your point. So that this conversation was happening and a person says, hey, don't take alcohol, it's habit forming. He said, I'm doing it for 20 years, it's not. So that's what happens when you leave it open. So culture is always something which is a top-down, sort of a perspective. And if you leave it open, then these are the things which can, take the center stage. So that's one. Second is, how do we actually drive this agenda? Is it sort of a philosophical thing, or is it an initiative? Is there a framework? I would try to take an angle of policy. If you look at health as a policy, is there a written down document, available? That's one big question which we want to ask, ourselves. And you may think of insurance the moment I say, health as a policy. But insurance is part of your risk policy, which is interpreted as your health policy, Sorry for the tongue twister. Now, when we look at, health policy, it still exists, and it's existing for hundreds of years. We have, Hindalco, they have been following OSHA codes, which is written in 1948. How many of you have heard of pre-employment health checks? Right? Have you heard of post-employment health checks? But that's only, as a benefit. Yeah, but that's only as a benefit. But is it part of your health policy? What does it do to your, health engagement? Now, let's assume that there is a health policy. How are we integrating it with the entire organization metric? And we had a fantastic, outlook on differentiation. Differentiation is created to drive performance. Can we look at an angle where health is also part of it? If you see, and I think a lot of you would know, in PSUs and defense, they have a sports quota. So the person who is fittest, who is running at the best or doing any sports, he gets that. MS Dhoni, they have shown this, right? But that's the angle where they're saying if you're doing well on health, there is something good for you, from a commercial standpoint. So can we create that angle there, that what is zero tolerance and what is highly rewarding when we look at, health? You also spoke about financial wellness. Let's look at, even if you have excess, let me, mention some names. Siddharth Shukla, Puneet Rajkumar, and very recently we had Nitin Kamath, talking about stroke. They all had excess. They all were in fact doing very well. But probably there was an angle of neglect. So how do we kind of address that neglect? So that's where the journey of differentiation and inclusion can be blended together. A 20 to 25-year-old guy's requirement could be very different. And I count myself in your bucket, when we are at that age. So that's the kind of differentiation we should create. And then we try to, develop that performance. A person very young may be interested in a cyclothon or a marathon versus a person, of relatively higher age or maybe leadership could be interested in condition management in a concierge service. It's very different from how we look at Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and various other terms which has been emerging these days. So that's my 2-bit. And from an inclusion standpoint, we think that leadership should be, supporting the cause, or they should be, driving it, but actually they should be the consumer of it. That's the way inclusion can be driven to the last mile. So then they can be the ambassadors of the entire agenda, and then you will find the buy-in by the business is much higher. Otherwise, there's always a gap between intent and execution. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, great. I think some super points, Sudhir. Though, of course, you lost me at alcohol, so it took me some time to come back. So I think some really interesting points. And the other thing that actually stayed with me was that it's, at 25 to 30, you might want cyclothon. As you get older, you probably need cyclopump, right? As the system kind of evolves. No, but I think it's a great point, right? So inclusivity, the key binder can actually be something like health, right? Between differentiation and inclusivity. So very, very interesting perspective, right? A very, very diverse way of thinking of it. So let's go from there into a voice that you probably hear every morning when you drive to work, which is typically when your radio is on, right? So let's hear from Charu. Charu, why don't you talk to us about, how is it that this actually impacts, and, curiously, how would it be working in a, in a glamour industry where, your voice matters then a little bit more than how you look, which is why I wish that this conference was held online, right? Then you wouldn't have to see us, you could just hear us. And some of us, sound better than we look. But yeah, Charu.
Thank you, Amit. I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So thank you, Amit. You have been setting the context really right. I think the industry that I can speak about, media industry, or I can just give a sneak peek view of it, and it's very different from other moderators. So, for us, inclusivity is a business imperative, okay, because that's what we thrive on. And the more diverse our population is, the more creative the team is. And there are enough studies which says that if you have diverse team, then innovation breeds there, right? And I can really quote Varna Mayers, and we have this so much of spoken on inclusivity and culture, but I think this quote from her really describes what really diversity and inclusion is. So she says that diversity is being invited to a party, and inclusivity is being invited to a dance floor, and belongingness is asking which song do you want to dance on, right? And that's what I think kind of culture that is required in an organization like ours. When we are actually rethinking what inclusivity means to us. It may be not just limited to LGBTQ, gender. Of course, that is needed, and that's a larger shift that we want to see in the world itself. But now, we are internally talking about, am I giving a culture where employees can bring their authentic self to work? Is my culture, curated in a way where, a person can come and say that, I am going through anxiety and I am under counseling session, so I need easy 2 months, right? And maybe I want a day off because, there's too much of pressure at work and I need that day off. So can that conversations really get curated internally in the organization? So we spoke about, maternity being considered, as part of when you're being evaluated in productivity or performance discussion. But if somebody is going through a bereavement period, let's say somebody is going through health challenge, and I think health challenge right now is a very different kind of health challenge do you see. So are my managers equipped enough to be emotional about that, a person was missing from work because possibly they lost their parents for 2 months and they were, in the bereavement phase. So are those also conversations being included in part of our inclusivity conversation? So that's where our entire shift is, because like we say, the consumer pattern is changing. So same person is hearing Sister Shivani and the same person is also following K-drama. That's the diverse choices that we have, and each of us as individuals are having diverse choices. So for us, we are re-looking at our own employees from a very different lens because the larger ecosystem has changed. And I really think that HR as a fraternity is more transformational than any other period, than the way it is required right now. So our conversation is now inward, like post-COVID, we were also doing sessions on anxiety, stress, parenting, working parents and all of that. And now we are coming back to the drawing board and we are thinking that, should we have, sessions more on workplace positivity? Rather than, going too far and stretching yourself too far, how can we talk about workplace positivity and what are the nuances that we can bring? So those are some of the shifts that we see internally, the way we are, dealing with these topics. So yeah, that's the broader theme that we are, operating with, and it's a very different take from how we used to do things earlier.
I think great point, particularly around being vulnerable, right? So, sometimes when you read articles in Harvard Business Review and the like around what should leaders look like, right? Or the way they describe what a leader should look like, and then you look at sometimes the leaders in your office and you're like, this doesn't quite match, right? It's slightly different. So I think the key aspect of being vulnerable, right, or being able to express that you're vulnerable, I think is such an important piece around inclusivity, because you will only share how you feel, your deepest feelings in terms of being most vulnerable, only with those that you're most comfortable sharing it with, right? So being able to create an environment like that, fantastic, great.
Yeah, so like for that matter, we want to create a boundary-less organization.
Right.
We are present in 58 cities in India, but we want to be boundary-less.
Right.
We want to talk about shared purpose and collaboration as our central theme. And let me tell you, it is all derived as a business imperative. It's
Correct.
not like
Yes.
that, we are focusing that it's a great thing to do, but it is completely integrated with the business outcomes also. So that's how, shift that we see.
So radio in 58 cities, wow.
Yeah.
That's some presence, right? Fantastic. Great, so let's move to another interesting aspect, right? So we've talked about wellness, we've talked about inclusivity. Now, a lot of what we've discussed is, yes, we should be doing this, it's there, we are seeing some of it. But obviously there may be certain practical challenges, right, around how does inclusivity take place. So let me come to you, Anupa. What do you think specifically? Sometimes I think, we've discussed two things again, that we keep hearing about. One is technology, the other is generational diversity and stuff like that. So do you see practical challenges to inclusion, particularly around things like generational diversity? How have you experienced that? What's been your experience? You come from a company called Aditya Birla Wellness. So by definition, you have wellness in your, literally in your DNA, no pun intended. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. Am I audible? Yeah, okay, great. Thanks. Yes, Amit, I definitely see a lot of challenges, especially when we are trying to address a very diverse set of population across, our corporates. And for us, it's not only corporates, but we also deal with a lot of B2B2C customers, right? So we're talking to the banks, we're talking to insurance companies, we're talking to fintech companies, we're talking to insurtech, et cetera, right? I remember seeing, a very interesting poster by the World Health Organization on health literacy, where they had categorized 5 different individuals who were trying to reach a wall, okay, and look on the other side. And it was like very diverse. Like there was a kid, there was a pregnant woman, there was a senior citizen, there was a woman, man, whatever. So there were like 5 individuals. And what happened is the HR, they gave them blocks, okay, to stand up so that they come to a certain level, right? So basically providing them resources. But what they didn't realize is everybody was, again, at the same, where they were, but upgraded, yes, but not really the whole concept of hyper-personalization, right? Which is where, the whole, I think, education on health and wellness is a lot about hyper-personalization. And we see that, a lot required. I come from a generation where I keep telling people that, what is APIs? I'm sure everybody knows over here now. What are APIs, right? We all talk about it in our general technology parlance. But for us, API in the health side is active pharmaceutical ingredient, which we use in drugs and medicines, right? So where I'm coming to is that the last 20 years, 2 decades, we have seen a real boom in terms of technology usage and adoption, right? And that's exactly the thing that needs to be addressed with maybe the millennials or the Gen Zs that we see. Today, the average age that we see in companies is what, 29 to 32 years of age, average age of employees. May not be specifically in a blue-collared setup, but more around white-collared, right? And how do you really talk to that employee? What is it that is going to be relevant to him in terms of a value proposition? In my previous organization, we actually introduced the concept of flex benefits globally and in India. Sudhir, you remember, right? We were part of the same organization. And at that time, we had launched OPD programs for corporates. And we would give them a wallet share of, say, 5,000 rupees or 20,000, whatever. You give them a wallet size of different benefits that they can pick and choose. It could be a health checkup, it could be, various things. Of course, at that time, it was more pertaining to health checkup. And that time, I had a lot of, our corporate employees, walk up to me, during our sessions and tell us that, I'm just 21-year-old or 23-year-old. Why would I need I don't think I need a health check or a very advanced health check. I would rather prefer a gym, a gym membership, or I would prefer some fitness session or a counseling session or whatever, or a dietitian consultation, whatever that may be. And I think over a period of time, we evolved the whole concept of flex benefits, which was typically addressing that, that whole challenging, diverse population that we see, right? The millennials today are very comfortable with digital, okay? They want fast, they want speed, they want convenience. We ourselves, Aditya Birla Wellness, we adopt a very digital-first approach, not only in the products, but my colleagues here will say that all of us went and did a course on digital transformation, right? So that, we are able to have conversations with our tech department, the tech teams and the digital teams, and give more digital-first, products to our clients, right? So I think there is a challenge, and I think there is a way to, even address that challenge. Women's health, when we spoke about, I think a lot of you all spoke about women's health. We had created in my, couple of earlier stints of mine where we made these pregnancy care programs, right? Which were basically targeting the C-sections and, the high cost of claims associated with that and the complications of that. But today, when I talk of women's health, it's far beyond pregnancy. Today women are actually different age groups in their entire, life cycle need it across. Like earlier, it was only that maternal health. But today, they need it across, say, PCOD-related hormonal changes, menopause for the, 40-plus-year-old woman, right? So there as well, we see a lot of diversity and, challenges to really, address, products around that. So yeah, there are definitely, it is, we are trying to make it as inclusive, whether it is offering technology, but on the same time, making it hybrid. Because recently, in fact, we were with one of our, organizations who had a lot of factory locations, just as Mr. Mohit had mentioned for Hindalco. Similarly, we had another client. And they said their employees are not comfortable with, apps, right? In fact, in the factory locations, many of them are not even allowed to use their phones during work hours, right? So how do you address that segment? Then it has to be more of a hybrid model where it is face-to-face and, you're actually on the ground conducting activities for them. Yeah, so in a nutshell, yeah, it is challenging. We are addressing it. And I think that's where, Aditya Birla Wellness, we play a key role in terms of understanding the different propositions and, segments that we need and creating that for it.
So this is literally hyper-personalization at another level, right? So if you remember the first, what Anuja had spoken about, gave us the feeling of a multi-cuisine restaurant. This is Swiggy and Zomato. So it's not just one, it's multiple restaurants, it's literally on the click and it happens. And by the way, you're willing to pay a premium for that. So fantastic, thank you so much. So finally, let me come to you, Atul. You must be feeling like a T20 batsman now.
Yeah,
in the 20th over, finally we've been waiting for 45 minutes, 44 minutes.
Now.
Yeah, it's still red now.
Save the best for the last.
Saving the best for last. Atul, why don't you talk to us about something similar around generational diversity? What is it that you've seen? What's been your experience?
Sure.
And the like.
So Amit, thanks first of all for inviting me for this panel discussion, and second for remembering that I'm around. So, okay, now see, in terms of generational diversity, so I had an assumption that my name starts with A, so you'll start with me. And I think that's the point, that when we talk of generational diversity, we need to keep aside a lot of our assumptions, right? Because a lot of times we approach the younger workforce with some assumptions, and they also approach us with some assumptions, right? So yes, there are some real-time issues which need to be looked at. So for example, in our case, we run a program called Campus to Corporate, where, all our management trainees and chartered accountant trainees and GETs and all, whoever come in, we try to sensitize them to the working of the organization, the culture of the organization, so that they are a little better acclimatized, right? Also from the perspective, and I think this was brought up earlier by my co-panelists also, the managers play a key role. And it's important to kind of change their mindset or bring about a mindset shift in terms of how to look at it. So for example, if somebody's worked in the corporate for 20 years, 25 years, they feel that I've seen all, done it all, and this is the way to do it. The fact is that we live in a very, very volatile world. Things are changing, and digital is a big disruptor, or technology is a big disruptor. So therefore, I think what we are trying to do at Aditya Birla Capital also is to bring about a mindset shift that, look, domain-wise, you may know a lot of things, but things are changing at a very fast pace. In terms of execution, you need to learn, right? So reverse mentoring is something that has been spoken of for a long time, but we are actually doing it now, right? So for example, in my case, and I'm quite young, I saw Golmaal just 2 years back on OTT, right? But yes, there are some team members who are younger than me. And if there's any kind of a digital tool that we are implementing, or for example, recently there was something on reimbursements, right? And they had brought in a new software. So this girl who works with me walked in and said, "Ki boss, aap side mein hatenge, let me do it for you." And I said, "No, I'll do it, you teach me." So I think that's important, because a lot of times what happens is that you feel that, oh, I am higher up, I'm senior, I'm this, I'm that. You won't be nothing at all actually, but that's how you feel. I think that bonding that comes in and that openness that is required is very, very critical. The challenge which I find is that wherever people feel that, no, my way or the highway, it does not exist anymore, right? You have to work with them, and I think both parties have to understand each other better. Today we have situations where even father and son are working in the same organization, right? I'm sure a lot of us sitting over here, our children, again, I'm very young, but our children, are getting into the corporate world, and you will find yourself working in the same organization. So there could be some kind of a mental block. But, at least what we're trying to do is that, look at it from that perspective also, which also means something that my friend Mohit is very fond of, even taking people through things like human process labs.
Yep.
Because when you say mindset shift, it cannot be done only by taking them through a 8-hour training session. They would need something more experiential, right? Even, we are doing something called NLO, which is Natural Learning Opportunity, where we invite youngsters to come in and sit in very, very senior meetings and critical meetings and confidential meetings, right? That's one way to include them. And they're also allowed to speak. They're also allowed to give their suggestions and inputs. That's our way of accepting what they're saying. Right. Because we may be looking at things in a particular way, but they are actually, they come from a slightly different perspective. So yes, there are a lot of challenges, but I feel, Amit, honestly, that it's not that they cannot be overcome. I think we need to look at the situation, look at the context, and then go about it.
Wow, interesting. So that was really a very eventful last over in the T20 that you hit out, Atul. So I think Atul made the transition. A lot of us attempt to make the transition from dude to dad. You've made the transition from dad to dude, right? So well done on that. And on that note, I must say that, the degree of inclusivity in Mumbai is much higher than that of Delhi. And the reason for that is, when you say my way or the highway, there are no highways in Mumbai, right? Everything is under construction. And Delhi, on the other hand, you can say my way or the highway, they've got good roads, but yeah. So thank you, great input on that. So, we're coming down to the last 10 minutes on this conversation. So very quickly, maybe, we can go all the way around, starting from you, Anupa, and, coming all the way to Anuja. If there was one message on wellness that you would have to give, or, just one thing that as HR professionals, we can do to demonstrate intent on wellness or inclusivity, in your assessment, what would that be?
So I think start from a very, defined guiding principle, okay? Understand why are you, start with the vision, okay? What is the vision of this program, and what is it that you want to achieve out at the end of it, right? Because at the end of it, everything is about creating impact, measurement, and, meaningful, results, right? So if only I know what's the North Pole or the end point, I'm able to then, what do you call, calculate baseline levels data to show that impact that I need to go back to the organization. Because wellness at the end of it is a business also, right? I am actually going to my senior management team, leadership team to seek approval on a lot of, the way forward, the budgets, et cetera. So it has to be, we are accountable at the end of it, right, to show results. So I think the first thing is designing the entire plan, the guiding principles, the vision, the mission, and lay out the full plan. And it has to start with the approach of, knowing where you stand, right? So know your health. And I mean, just to go a step before that, when I mentioned guiding principles, I think please focus on FGDs, focus group discussions. When we spoke about diverse populations, get them together in a room like, you were talking about, a different varied, employees coming together, get a sense of what is it that they're really looking for in wellness. Just don't go, to the market and pick things off the shelf. I think customize and, adopt programs that are really needed by your organization. And, once you do that, then of course launch with a very defined approach of knowing your health, managing it, and then finally, rewarding and improving. And definitely focus on the aspects of engagement because, as I was saying, if you look at the millennials or the Gen Zs, they are a lot into instant gratifications, a lot into, really at the moment, right? So how do you incentivize, how do you gamify? Gamification is key today. We know it's a world of, online games are so prominent. I don't think many of us even played so many video games as much as we see our kids doing now, right? So I think instant gratification, gamification, and creating that whole plan together.
Okay, so KYH, know your health, guiding principles, gamification. Okay,
Yes.
Great. So Atul, the match, it ended in a tie, so in the super over. So you still haven't got your pads off, so go.
Sure, thank you so much. I'm really overwhelmed. One is that, on the physical wellness front, I think one size does not fit all. And therefore, the policy of the organization should be different for, let's say, 25-year-old vis-a-vis 45-year-old. On the mental wellness, we are also talking about in terms of manager effectiveness. Because manager is the moment of truth for any employee, right? And therefore, focus on that besides other things that you would like to do, like yoga or whatever that you would like to do. For financial wellness, contact Aditya Birla Capital.
So I was just going to say that, for the example you've given really is about one size does not fit all. And the only thing that actually one size fits all is a cap. So Aditya Birla Cap Ital works for you. Fantastic. Okay, great. Sudhir.
Thank you. That's I think they have put off the mic also, looks like. Time is not there. So I think, Atul, the trick is to sit in the middle.
I know.
Yeah, it's not the alphabetical order, probably. So for many decades now, business has come in the way of health. And that's how now health is coming in the way of business.
Wow. Okay.
And then that's how we are talking about it. Otherwise, we may not have really spoken about it. Yeah. We have spoken about health policy. Now, I'm assuming that the health policies are already well laid. Within that, we need to very clearly lay out further what are the health metrics. I'm just trying to oversimplify it. If there are ways to measure it, and I'm just putting two aspects here. One is transaction, which is this policy really being adopted by people? Are there uptakes happening and things like that? So there is a transaction which is happening between what you are offering and what the employee is receiving. Second is transformation. What is the outcome which is giving to the employee? Are they becoming better because of this? Is the organization becoming more healthier, becoming a better productive place, becoming a more healthier workforce, and things like that. Third important aspect is you should have right people, to advise you, to support you in this journey. You don't need to do it all by yourself, You of course have Aditya Birla team here, and incidentally you also have HCL Healthcare. So, you could talk to, all the professional and people who can help you in this journey. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys do realize that you could have advertised this on radio, right? Rather than talk to the audience. So you're taking away radio revenue for Charu. But anyway, great points with you. Thank you. Mohit.
So quickly, my recommendation for both wellness and inclusivity will be mindfulness and self-awareness. So it is not about the wall, that is organization. It is about the bricks in it, that is the individual in it, and that's the me in it actually. The more I spend time with myself and honor that appointment with myself and be aware of the different range of people that are there within the same personality, right? Sometimes I feel adequate, sometimes I feel inadequate. Do I accept the inadequacy in me? Sometimes I feel confident, sometimes I don't feel confident, right? Sometimes I feel like a king, sometimes I feel like a child, sometimes I feel like a warrior, sometimes I feel like a lover. Am I aware of the entire range within me? Am I accepting of that? Am I integrating that in my own expression? If yes, then perhaps I'm more effective as a human being. I'm living much more fully and completely. And if I'm that accepting, loving, and kind to myself, quite likely that I will be accepting, inclusive, and kind to the range which is there in the others. And that's the tango that is possible if, and begins with the self-awareness.
So yeah, profound, deep, as always. And you've just played more roles than Kamal Hassan did when he played 9 roles, right? So in terms of king, lover, and all of that. So fantastic. Well done.
So I would say, what gets measured, monitored, rewarded,
Gets done. Yeah.
Gets done. So I think we don't talk as much about, have we ever issued performance improvement plans on business reviews? We always have, but have we done them ever on health index of the team? I don't think so. If I could do one thing as HR, I would say that all the business reviews can't end without health index review by the CEO. Simplistically put, what we're trying to do here is taking from the, leadership effectiveness or managerial effectiveness. There's an initiative that we're taking in current organization where we're putting about 20% weightage to the leadership effectiveness in the KRA of each manager, where the manager gets polled by the team members and the peers, which means parameters could be different. It could be about inclusivity, it could be about infant mortality, it could be about diversity, it could be happiness quotient. But the straight poll score that comes gets fed into the score of the person in the annual appraisal. I think that's when it materializes into monitoring and review. So therefore, I think that's one thing that I would want to do as HR, really with rigor as we do business reviews on, we with as much rigor do the health, wellness, inclusivity reviews on.
So yeah, health quotient index, I think great idea. I mean, lot of companies measure safety as a metric, right? Maybe it's time we started thinking about health as well in a lot of ways. So great point. Charu.
So yes, I think, like the points that I earlier touched upon, we have done a lot of initiative, a lot of, on-the-shelf initiative like yoga, Zumba, you name it, and, awareness sessions. And I think now we have moved on to a stage that, any initiatives that we do which has direct linkage to wellness, is it really linked to the psychological safety of the employees? That's the ultimate goal of any initiative that we want to do, and that's my personal, perseverance that, I want to see that any initiative that we are doing, is it leading to the psychological safety, and that's the, vision that we carry.
So again, great because psychological safety essentially comes from being as authentic as you can,
Absolutely,
right? And if you're able to bring your whole self to work, which is what we're always saying.
And that's where, culture also comes in,
Absolutely.
And it is not just top driven, but it is driven across the organization, across the hierarchy, So there's a lot of role of culture to bring that. So it's not just one initiative you do and it will lead to wellness, but there are multiple things that we are doing together. And it's not just open door policy. I think gone are the times when it was just open door policy. But now the thing is how I can bring my CEO to the center of things when it is happening. Let me also tell you, whenever we are going to offsite, we have 0 presentation offsites now. Because now, anyways, targets, what needs to be done is anyways, everyday task of the managers. And now we are saying that in offsites, we will talk about our purpose. We will make it more fluid. So we have a very different, of course, we are an innovative organization being in media, but that's where our entire shift is now. So
everyone can become an RJ,
Yes.
right? Because it's rejuvenation and joy, which is
And
cool
you
to
need
each
have
one of
a-
us.
And you need to
Fantastic.
have a good voice
Yep.
and you need to be well aware. Yes.
Yes.
Sure. So intent, Amit, is actually on the ground action. How you can impact the employee's life where the employee actually feels that I'm being taken care. So how do I translate action, how do I translate the intention to action is where you, as an HR person, I do the entire role. I get the stakeholder management done, I get the resources, I take initiatives, I implement, I check for the impact, take feedback, and again back to action. So I think you have to go through the entire cycle again and again to reinforce that as an organization we do care. So yeah, to sum it up.
So fantastic. So in today's day and age, when you are in a situation of constantly focusing on health, the biggest race that you can actually run, or the toughest race that you run, is the one between intent and action, right? Because that is the one where you're really being able to bring to life the whole story. Because very often we hear this term called "mera wo matlab nahi tha," and the fact of the matter remains that we always judge ourselves by our intent and everyone else by their actions. So ladies and gentlemen, we are about a minute over, and you can add 30 seconds. We are a minute and a half over, so if you add 30 seconds more, you can get really good noodles that get made in 2 minutes. But between thought for food and food for thought, I think put your hands together for an outstanding panel. Fantastic experience.